In this episode, I talk about more toys I wish I still had. Stick around. Dorks and Dorkettes, and welcome to Nostalgia Syndrome. My name's Rob, and in this episode we're going to talk about more toys I wish I still had from when I was a kid. Now, a lot of these toys just faded away from existence, and I don't have a clear recollection of what happened to them. I can only gather that they were either donated, broken, just given away, sold at yard sales, what have you. I mean, ultimately, I don't have them anymore, and some of them I still daydream about that I wish I had them. Now, I grew up in a family where we held on to a lot of things, so I was able to have a good bit of toys left over from my childhood here in the laundry room. But there are still some big-ticket items that I wish I still had. A lot of them probably just were too big to have laying around. I mean, one of the things that I kept mostly were action figures, because they're smaller, you can stick them in a box, put them away, and there you have it. And a lot of the things on this list, some of the previous lists, and some of the future lists are vehicles, play sets, things like that take up a little bit more real estate. So maybe that's why they ultimately went away. Anyway, let's get on to number one. Now, number one on the list wasn't really a big vehicle. I think it may have been one that I broke, unfortunately. And I'll explain that when I describe the mechanics of this little thing. But it was the Sand Speeder from Star Wars. It was released by Kenner in 1978. And yeah, to me, this was a very iconic vehicle. And I remember vividly when I got it. My aunt actually gave it to me along with two figures of Greedo and Hammerhead. Now, they didn't go with the Sand Speeder, but boy did they love taking joyrides in it. Now, the one thing about the Sand Speeder that I vividly remember breaking and trying to repair, or my father trying to repair for me, was the little gear shifty thing, if you will, that was in between the seats, that you could pop the wheels in and out from underneath it. Now, this was a really neat feature because you could have it roll, or you could pop it up and pretend that it was hovering around. And yeah, I just, like I said, have vivid memories of actually playing with that on my grandparents' sidewalk in front of their house. And just, yeah. These were my very first Star Wars toys of all time. And they have an everlasting impression on me. I mean, I would gather that an original one is quite pricey. So I would still be happy with one of the recreations of any of the multiple toy lines that came out. So when we do our little hunt on eBay, we'll have to see where it falls and how, if I can, ever get it back into my collection. Number two on the list isn't technically a toy, and I'm kind of cheating, but it's something that I remember and still to this day think about it. And I don't really have a big timeline of it. I just remember a specific point of having it, and yeah, it had a very big lasting impression on me, and that is the Kellogg's cereal mascot Sleeping Bag. Now, the thing that gets me is, with a little bit of research, I try not to do too much research because I just want this to be from my heart and soul and how I felt about these toys, and not bogged down by the facts, because yeah, we're not here to learn anything, we're just here to reminisce. Anyway, with this sleeping bag, I found out that it was released in the 70s, and the memories I have really aren't that young. I mean, I was old enough that I had a bunk bed. I had a red metal bunk bed, and I remember I slept on the top, and my parents got me the sleeping bag, and I slept with it on the top bunk. They could have got it at a Goodwill, they could have got it somehow handed down to them, and it made its way to me. But I remember this sleeping bag so vividly. I used that word in the last entry, but it's true. I mean, I remember Snap, Crackle, Pop being on it, The Sugar Smacks frog, I think, was on it. And it just was colorful and brimming with life of all these cereal mascots. And it was great. And yeah, I really loved that sleeping bag. But ultimately, I don't remember what happened to it. Probably outgrew it. It could have gotten worn down and gotten holy or whatever. But ultimately, it disappeared. And yeah, one day I would love to get one, but something like that, it's kind of like, where would you store that? I would just love to look at it and probably move on from that. So, probably don't really need that, get that in my collection again, but it still might be fun nonetheless. Now, number 3 on the list is a big one to me. Something that I would love to get into my collection again so very much. And it doesn't even need to be complete. It can be missing its accessories, except for one piece, and that is the Ninja Assassin's Werewolf. Now, this was released in 1985 from a very small toy company, and these figures were awesome. I mean, limited articulation, just arms and legs, and they had a lever action on the back for chopping action. And the werewolf was by far my favorite. He came with a cloth gi top, cloth pants, and those are the accessories that I absolutely need for him to have, and his mask. You can't forget the ninja mask. But he also came with a bunch of weapons, and those were awesome too. But this is a toy that I think about constantly, and I try to include it in as many lists as I can, and I have many lists planned, and he'll pop up on them time and again. I mean, growing up and you don't have that many toys, and the ones you do have, I mean, I remember getting this dude from Woolsworth. Him and the Rambo-esque one that came in camouflage ninja outfit. I mean, at that time period, for me, camouflage, soldiers, Rambo, squirt guns, cap guns, all that was super big to me. But the werewolf, man, that really spoke to me. He was awesome. And, I mean, he was taller than the He-Man figures, and definitely taller than G.I. Joe, but I tried to include him in as many play scenarios as I could. Yeah, this is another one I can't wait to dive into eBay and take a look at and see, A, if it's even listed, and B, how much he goes for. So, yeah, can't wait till we jump into the hunting episode and see where that takes us. Now, number 4 on the list is, like I said previously, a big ticket item. This is a toy that I can only imagine is very expensive, and I had a lot of great memories of it. When I received it, and let me say what it is before I get too far, but it's the Battle Ram from Masters of the Universe. Released by Mattel in 1982, this was one of the most earliest He-Man vehicles that there was. And when I was given it for Christmas that year, I had no idea that it even existed. And that's one of the things that I love about my recollection of growing up was you didn't have the finger on the pulse of the toy industry like you do now. I mean, you just played with stuff, and when your parents gave it to you, it popped into existence. We didn't do a lot of shopping when I was really young because we didn't have the money for it, so I didn't really see this stuff on the store shelves that often. So when it just was gifted to me, that's when it existed. So the Battle Ram is a perfect example of this, because I never knew anything about it, but it was so like cutting edge at the time. I mean, it was 2 vehicles in one. It fired missiles. It rolled, it flew. I mean, it was a catch-all great vehicle for Masters of the Universe, and it really cemented the fantasy and technology aspect of the universe. It was great. Now, this is one that I can guarantee goes for big money if I was interested in the original. Now, I know the Sky Sled has come out with the Origins line with Prince Adam and stuff like that, and I've had opportunities to get it, but just could never pull the trigger. I'm really curious to see if there's anything, reproductions of the Battle Ram that would be more accessible than getting the original. But you never know. The last time I hunted for toys in the Toys I Wish I Still Had episode from last month, I was really surprised at some of the prices and how obtainable they are. So, yeah, here's hoping for that. Now, number 5. Probably, yeah, a toy that I definitely wish I still had for obvious reasons, and one that I know goes for big money for obvious reasons, and that is the Dragonfly from G.I. Joe. Released by Hasbro in 1983, this is one of those toys, like I was talking about with the Battle Ram, where I had no idea it existed until I got it Christmas morning. And yeah, talk about a near perfect toy. In my lists of vehicles, or action figure vehicles, the Dragonfly would always be the very top of the list because of how great it was. I mean, it's a great helicopter. It had the little trigger thing on the side to get the propellers moving. It had an awesome cockpit that you could put 2 people in. It had an awesome machine gun on the side, machine guns on the front, missiles, Wild Bill. I mean, it was awesome. And yeah, I mean, I can remember that Christmas morning and just being infatuated by the Dragonfly. It was great. And yeah, it's one of those experiences that I think about quite often because of just how perfect that Christmas was, how perfect that toy was. And yeah, I never really got that many G.I. Joe vehicles, but that one will always be on the top of my list. So, like I said, I can guarantee that it's going to go for big money because G.I. Joe is a very hot commodity nowadays. And it's just an awesome vehicle, and I'm sure collectors just go crazy for it. So, I'm not really hopeful that it'll ever be something I'll get in my collection again, but I'm hoping. I mean, I'm in love with that vehicle. But anyway, this was just a quick list of 5 toys I wish I still had from when I was a kid. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. If you got something to say, please leave a comment. I love reading them, and I love getting back to everybody. And if you're new around here and you enjoyed this or any of the other episodes that YouTube is recommending down here, please hit subscribe. And if you hit that little bell icon, you will be notified whenever there's a new episode. So anyway, until next time, thanks for watching. Keep being rad and stay dorky.